What's up YouTube, Capital G here, checking out some brand new Shaddoll support that just got revealed. These cards are going to be released in the Rebirth of Shaddoll Structure Deck. No ETA for the TCG release of the Structure Deck, but my best guess is probably it's going to be like the second Structure Deck we get next year because they do have to give us the Warrior Structure Deck probably before this. Anyways, let's go ahead and start out with the Fusion Monster. To no one's surprise, Shaddolls are getting more Fusion Monsters, and it's interesting because this is another dark attribute fusion. So shout outs to Winda. This is Shaddoll Apkallone. It's a level 6 dark spellcaster fusion monster. 2500 attack, 2000 defense. Stat line actually pretty good for a level 6 monster. I know that Winda is like level 5. I think she's either 2000 or 2100 attack. So 2500 defense or 2500 attack, definitely respectable. Now the materials are a little weird on this card. It requires 2 Shaddoll monsters with different attributes. At first I was like, do they want us to use Shaddoll Core, or maybe they use the fusion monsters? But apparently we are going to be getting Shaddoll monsters in the main deck that are not dark attribute, which is kind of crazy. I'll talk about one of those in a minute. Anyways, it says must first be special summoned by fusion summon. You can use this card's first and third effects as hard once per turn. First effect, if this card is special summoned, you can target one face-up card, negate its effects. Second effect, cannot be destroyed by battle. Third effect, if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add one Shaddoll card from your deck or graveyard to your hand, then discard one card. This card is like really sneaky good. It's not a card that like blows you away. It's not something where you look at it like Window or Construct back in 2014 and you're like, oh my god, those cards are insanely broken. Obviously, both of those cards spent time on the FNL list and the TCG and OCG. It's not up to that level, but I think that this is still a solid card. I do think that this card benefits a ton by going second, which is probably what Shaddolls want to do anyways. You look at the negation effect, at first it's like, that's not really all that good, until you realize like, hold on, the negation effect is permanent. So let's just think about if you were going second against maybe like one of those annoying field spell decks that want to use their field spell every single turn, maybe a Dragonic Diagram or a Sky Striker Area 0, you do realize you could target that card, turn it off, and it's basically off for the remainder of the entire game. Your opponent cannot use that card at all. Like its effect is just negated. So for them to get any value out of that card, they basically have to play like another copy or they have to blow it up or something like that. You can also use this to turn off floodgates, like if you're playing against Guru or something like that. There can only be one on the field. You turn their card off, and again, it's turned off permanently. Whether this card stays on the field or not, it's just off for the remainder of the game, which is really awesome. The second effect, where it can't be destroyed by battle, that's one of those effects where you don't really think about it that much until it comes up in a certain matchup like Guru or True Draco, decks that don't have a lot of monster removal basically, and it ends up putting in a lot of work. You just summon her in defense mode and you're just kind of chilling for 3-4 turns that maybe you wouldn't have gotten out of another card that didn't have that battle protection. So that's like one of those sneaky good effects. And then the third effect is pretty good as well. The third effect is kind of like your pseudo floating ability. We've seen this built into a lot of Shaddoll monsters where they can get a Shaddoll card from your graveyard basically for free. This card doesn't get the card for free per se. However, it lets you rota for anything in the Shaddoll archetype. And you know that that's obviously strong, especially considering that we're expecting a lot of new cards in this structure deck. So it'll be able to search all of them. And I think even kind of the discard effect can be good too, because that's just more opportunities for you to trigger your Shaddoll monsters, and obviously it's not a cost. Hell, it can even trigger things like Dark World effects. So overall, this definitely feels like it will be a card that's ran in Shaddolls, maybe 1-2 copies, but I think players will definitely use this. I don't think you'll really like summon this card going first, but going second, it definitely feels like, it can be a strong card. Our second card is a main deck monster. This is Shaddoll Ariel, and if you haven't guessed by now, these cards are based on Gishki Ariel. Read the dual terminal if you don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, this is a level 4 Water Psychic Flip monster. It is 1000 attack and she has 1800 defense. So that's what I mean. This is your first kind of main deck Shaddoll monster that is not dark attribute. She's water. So, I mean, you could just run one copy of this and it would make obviously summoning her fusion form a lot easier with something like, you know, the regular Shaddoll fusion. Anyways, she has a hard once per turn on both of her effects. Her flip effect is you can target one of your banished Shaddoll monsters, special summon it, and face up or face down defense position. Second effect, if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can target up to 3 cards in the graveyard, banish them, and that actually works on both players' graveyards. So you can target like 1 card in your graveyard and then like 2 cards in your opponent's graveyard, and you can banish a collective amount of 3. Okay, so when I first read Ariel's flip effect, I immediately thought of something like Shaddoll Falcon. I was like, all right, it's kind of like the same deal. Basically lets you use your Shaddoll flip effects again. Definitely solid. I thought it wouldn't be as consistent because I was like, it summons from the banish pile instead of the graveyard. Shaddolls don't really have a bunch of like banishing effects. Maybe you could throw in a Dark Arm Dragon here or there, or maybe some chaosy cards that work with dark monsters in the graveyard. But then it just kind of dawned on me like, wait a minute, can't we just run like 3 copies of Allure of Darkness and just turbo the hell out of this deck? Obviously a majority of the main deck Shaddoll monsters are dark attributes, so just I kind of feel like Allure of Darkness just being a thing kind of makes her instantly viable in the deck, to where if you ever have to like set her on the field, you should have probably used an Allure by then. If not, maybe Konami will have more ways of banishing cards, but I kind of feel like even if they don't, just Allure of Darkness alone kind of makes her effect at least quite decent. Like, it definitely feels like something that you should be able to, you know, resolve maybe one time in a duel. I'm not sure if it is quite as good as Falco, but it's also an effect that should be live throughout the entirety of a duel. I think her second effect can be pretty legitimate too. It seems like it might be a little matchup dependent, because attacking somebody's graveyard, like, that can be excellent in certain matchups, and then in others it could be like completely dead. But being able to DD Crow 3 cards out of your opponent's graveyard, and if you do it during their turn, that can be potentially devastating. There are not a lot of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That let you banish like 3 cards from your opponent's graveyard immediately and let you do it during your opponent's turn. So if you resolve her effect during your opponent's turn, that can be a little bit of a blowout. So overall, these cards are, I think that they're solid. We'll have to see where Shaddolls are going to go, if they're going to be more banish based, or if Konami is going to give us a bunch more, you know, different attribute main deck Shaddoll monsters. I'm very interested to see what Konami has cooked up. Anyways, whatever you guys think of the new Shaddoll support, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.